And welcome back to another special episode of VansPotCast, episode 6. Is it episode 6? Yes, it is. It is April Fool's Day, everybody, but today it is episode 6. I've got one of my wonderful friends and cannabis activists on the podcast with us today, phoned in via FaceTime because he is out on the road changing the world. I got my bestie and Shaman from the West, Paco Vargas, on the line with us. Everybody, yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry I missed the smokeout at the Trenton mayoral. How about you just tell the listeners what that was? All I got was a smokeout on the Capitol. I forgot what the headline.
Hot box for homegrown.
Hot box for homegrown. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, shout out to Lefty again at Sativa Cross, doing some amazing activism work. We'll definitely post them up in the profile later. No jokes today, everybody. Just a lot of great information that we wanted to share that's coming across again. It's another wonderful month, and we are working progressively, spreading the positive word about legal cannabis, legal medicines. The fight continues against pharmaceuticals in one of the biggest pharmaceutical procuring and political wrangling states, New Jersey. We recently saw some political changes. Tammy Murphy stepped down from running, which is going to lead to some really, really good advocacy on the correct side of politics as opposed to just money. So what was your outlook, and how was the stigma being presented in Trenton, Paco?
So it was pretty much, like I said, the Hot Box for Homegrown. I think they did it as a 10-year anniversary for Sativa Cross and whatnot, and the other activist organizations. We all just went out there just to pretty much join up together.
Did he have his podcast out front?
He did, yes. He was live out in front of the Steakhouse Capitol, and it was great. It was a great time. I walked up, of course, with a big old joint. Why I'm there, you know what I mean? And then I gifted Lefty a bunch of RSO fecal capsules.
For our listeners that aren't familiar with the level of medicine RSO is, can we give them just a really quick explain, like I'm 5, what is RSO and why is it so hard to procure in the state of New Jersey?
It is very hard to find, actually, in the state of New Jersey. A lot of these dispensaries do not offer RSO. There's very select few that do. And RSO is literally what's called Rick Simpson's oil, and it's pretty much concentrated oil of cannabis and other cannabinoid compounds within the plant. So it's pretty much full plant medication, and it's as strong as it can possibly get with that stuff. I use it personally for my chronic pain, and a lot of people, tend to find a lot of relief using that type of medication as opposed to just smoking it or dabbing it, so it's a different form of edible that you ingest, but it's a great form for me personally. I mean, I ingest a bunch of RSO daily, and that's what keeps me personally off of opiates and keeps me off of getting surgery that it's not needed realistically. I mean, I don't need it, but I don't need it at this point in time if I can still currently walk,
Correct. And is the pricing coming down, or is it just is it kind of like a crapshoot? You got to kind of talk to vendors. You got to go out of state. Is it actually getting to that level that regular users, regular medical users can just go to a dispensary and feel comfortable using that instead of their current meds?
Depending on the dispensary, I guess you could say, depending on the source of your RSO medication is, and realistically speaking, like I said, RSO really isn't readily available in the state, unfortunately. Neither is any of the other options form of medication for me personally. A lot of the RSO in the state really isn't ethanol extracted, so for me personally, it just doesn't work. It ends up not being as potent as I need it to be.
Correct.
Realistically speaking. So
is that because of the derivative process, because of the ethanols and because of the additives and things like that? It's not coming back as strong as a homegrow?
No, not necessarily. It's just more so of the processes that they've used in the state to
Okay.
facilitate said RSO products.
Okay.
More so. So, yeah, it's just, like I said, it's just all about finding the source that works for you.
And in your experience since making that change to 100% medical, what state, in your opinion, has the fastest leaning policies as far as getting that level of medicine without having to jump through so many hoops? At least in your experience, I know that's a really big question leading into another question.
Not many. Um, Not many outlets for that type of medication on the East Coast, I will admit. The West Coast is a lot more prevalent for those types of medications. Um, there's, just for example, when I lived on the West Coast in Oregon, there was RSO, there was probably about 5 to 6 options on any said recreational dispensary, um, as far as availability. Here in New Jersey, there's literally one option in most dispensaries. It's like one brand, I believe.
One brand, yeah, that's right.
There's not many brands that are making RSO
That are making it, yeah.
It's not cost effective for most of these dispensaries in the state of New Jersey, when they're selling an ounce for $485.
Correct.
When you're selling an ounce for $485 and you're trying to sell RSO, which is a concentrated boiled down version of cannabis in obviously concentrated oil form or tincture form, and that is just not cost effective for most of these dispensaries or manufacturers to make. So I guess they're not making it to them. Same thing with hash rosin. Hash rosin isn't readily available in the state. It's one of the only medications that work for me. Because if not, I have to sit there and I have to smoke a half an ounce a day of cannabis flower. It's like, where am I going smoking a half an ounce a day at $485 an ounce, being semi-disabled? Like, I haven't needed spinal reconstructive surgery, and it's like dealing with my conditions and my diagnoses of what I have is just like, for the chronic pain that I have to literally mitigate daily, it's just not worth it for me to spend that much money. You understand what I'm saying? I have to spend
absolutely
a mortgage payment a week.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
To live a better quality of life.
Correct. And it's not that for our listeners, it's not that Paco's a stoner. Paco was in a trans automobile accident while trucking. So it's not multiple. Yeah, so it's not it's definitely Paco's a regular Joe, like one of your Amazon driver. You know what I'm saying? He's a regular Joe that was in a car accident, and he's just trying to remedy his pain. So for our listeners out there with the, well, what kind of pain is this? What kind of pain is anybody in? To be honest with you, trauma comes in so many different forms, and it really shouldn't be stigmatized because we're trying to leave the opioids behind and the pharmacological warfare that New Jersey has on veterans. You mentioned Portland, and that was a big question for me because I'm still flabbergasted at how people can walk around with Narcan, fentanyl, just meth, sharing needles. It's an open air drug market like I've never seen before. And if you could just shed some light on where they went wrong and why everything just got out of hand, I would love to hear just a little piece of it.
So, with Oregon's politics in regards to that, they did a decriminalization of all drugs. And they just realized that might have been an issue, considering that it was going to open up the floodgates for a lot of people on these substances. And they didn't take that into consideration. I mean, they did technically, where they said they would send these people to outreach help to get, actual substance abuse help. And I guess it did work out, but most of the people were just getting swept under the rug type of thing, where it's like, yeah, whatever, it's legal, like
swept under the bridges, under the roads,
literally,
the backyards,
sides of the roadways, sides of the highways, like in the people were just living anywhere they could just because it was legal there.
Yeah, it was legal drug then.
Legal to decriminalize, and they were just there just to enjoy their habit of choice, which was substance abuse. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that also sparked most of the psilocybin and psychedelic therapy in Oregon.
Which we're seeing a little bit on the East Coast as well. Even the VA is starting to adapt it.
2019.
Absolutely.
Since 2019, they're getting so much traction. Colorado, most of the Midwest, not most of the Midwest, excuse me, Colorado in the Midwest, and then you had Oregon that was all about it as well. And now you're having dispensaries for psilocybin therapy in California, I believe, is where they're starting one. It's like the first in the country, I think I read up on. And, it's like, again, that was the game changer for that decriminalization of drugs in Oregon with, I forgot the measure. I don't want to quote it if I'm being correct about it. But yeah, just because of that decriminalization, it turned things upside down a little bit for them to realize that people actually needed more help than saying, okay, we're going to help you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they left it on the back burner a little.
Detox thing. It was mostly like a detox thing. They just put people up, detox them, and then, okay, you can go to outpatient therapy to get you some substance, and then people wouldn't show up. You know what I mean?
Correct. There wasn't any follow-up on that, and it led to a lot of zombies being out there.
Correct. I mean, it's just the way it is with most any
dope sick. Yeah, they're
substance abuse.
Correct. Yeah, or they're not leaning on the right kind of therapy. They're not leaning on the right kind of counseling. The drugs are there, but it's like the counseling process isn't there, which is something completely different on our side. I noticed
it's hard for them to keep up with that. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and like you said, especially with prices and stuff like that, being completely priced out of New Jersey, I can see why somebody with access to Portland could definitely find it to be the drug paradise of the West Coast.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I moved to Oregon was because I needed to be a cannabis refugee, a medical patient refugee, because it was just so expensive here in New Jersey at the time when I was a medical patient in 2016, 2017. You know what I mean? It was still astronomically expensive. And like now it's still very expensive. And it's like, nothing has changed in well over 6 years in pricing. Like, yeah, medical patients don't pay taxes, but paying taxes on what is like, saving 20-something% on something that's still $300, like, $400, like, where are you going saving just a couple bucks? Like, this is something that I need to use to medicate daily to be able to function without the inflammation in my spine causing a whole bunch of pain and nerve ending things.
And that's also a little bit of a blurred line as well to say that medical patients don't pay taxes bullshit, because there's excise taxes on the receipts and there's still Jersey sales tax and little bits and pieces that be on my receipt. So they're still skimming off the top. Someone's coffers are still getting lined, and again, like, the due diligence isn't there. It really isn't. The quality of medicine isn't there. And hopefully,
it's days ago quality in New Jersey. I hate to say it.
It's the same. It's the same kind of quality all over the place. I could yell to the hills from here to Trenton. But that's what the internet is for. So I don't need to do that anymore. How do you feel about ketamine for depression and new alternatives and that space being covered by alternative and holistic healthcare as opposed to cannabis? Do you see them as allies, or do you see them as people that are kind of jumping on the fringes because pot is no longer taboo? Do you feel like they're niche and that they're really not worth other people's research or time because they're so alternative and they're so out of grasp? How do you feel about them?
Honestly, to each their own. If it works for you, it works for you, realistically speaking. I personally microdose psilocybin daily, and it works very well for me in treating most of my ailments and issues that I have. It works wonders for like my anxiety, and it works really well for my depression. Also helps with light pain, so it's like small amounts of actual neck and back pain that I have.
Sure.
The mushrooms actually help a little bit in small quantity doses, where I'm not like tripping, watching the walls melt, but it is helping as far as small micro doses. I literally take 0.2, 0.3 of a gram per day. It's actually 3 times a day, and it works really well for me. Actually,
there you go. You heard it first. VansPotCast. We love shrooms as well.
Yes. So I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
That. Like, I'm sure ketamine works for people. I personally never tried ketamine as far as using it for microdosing for depression. So I wouldn't know personally, but hey, if it works for you, it works for you. There's no judgment. You know what I mean? Like, do what you got to do that helps you live a better quality of life, realistically speaking. You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
one piece of advice that I got from someone was, "This is your world, and we're just living in it." So I literally kind of tend to, harp on that quote a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was a lot of fun. And I really appreciate your time. I know we've been dying to get together. We've both been really, really busy in 2024, but hopefully towards the warmer weather, we can all get together and have a fireside chat with our highly elevated friends and barbecue Leo. And definitely, you got a birthday coming up, so I can't wait to celebrate that with you as well. You got a wonderful trip coming up as well, so we'll definitely be getting in some April sessions and.
You let me know, but I'll come up there. Actually, Lefty had invited me up, and so I'm probably going to be in your area, and we can definitely link up soon.
That sounds fantastic. I would love that. That would be great.
I'm looking forward for sure.
Yeah, man, I got some great reviews from some of your PDX products. Obviously, I told you earlier I took a tremendous weed nap. I really appreciate the love that you've been giving me, my family.
Every time,
yeah, the Sherb cake. The Zope right now is really. I'm still sitting on a bunch of it because the buds are so perfectly curated and manicured. They're just sometimes you ever get that you get like these perfect buds and you don't want to break them up. You're just like, oh my god, these buds are so pretty.
That's literally me with my Gorilla Glue number 4. The other day I was making RSO with some Gorilla Glue, man, and I just literally was just like looking at these buds and I'm like, I really hate to break these buds up right now. But it's for the better cause of medication. You know?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
There's no way about it. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I love smoking.
It smells great too. Like when you put it in some papers, that little bit of black coffee in the morning, it really gets you going. That West Coast flavor. It's definitely my favorite this week. I haven't put it inside of any of my wraps. So one real quick question: do you have a preference when you're making your RSO? Like, do you use Everclear? Or are you more like a scientist and you go for like the most unrefined type of ethanols? Or do you use ether? I'm not even sure that. No.
So I personally learned from an old school guy, and so my techniques are real old school.
Sure. So like double boilers and things like that.
To be honest, I use Everclear.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Everclear.
Yeah, Everclear is the grain alcohol that I use, and usually when it comes down to it, I try to be a little safer when dealing with Everclear because I don't have electric stove. So,
okay. So you're going with the
I go with the
combustion.
Yeah.
Oh, crockpot. Okay, electric. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, electric, no combustion. What I end up doing is I end up just because I have also water distillation machine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I run the alcohol through there to distill it, and then just get all of my alcohol back recycled.
Nice.
What I'll end up doing is I'll take the end bit of that Everclear and liquid concoction, I guess you can call it, of all the cannabinoids that have now broken down off the plant, and then I just cook that off inside of a crock pot.
It looks like a little
get it to be
green slurry.
Oh yeah, it's like a green goop, black goop almost.
Yeah.
So it starts turning black once the cannabinoids start, decarbing and whatnot. Wow. That's the process pretty much. It's cooking off the Everclear and decarbing the cannabinoids so you can make it into medication pretty much.
Awesome.
That version of it. But no, that's it. And then I just, like I said, crock pot. Usually put it in the crock pot low until it gets super thick and pasty, and then I just syringe it up usually,
And those syringes, they can handle that high heat like that?
I usually wait until it starts getting a little cooled down.
Okay, cool.
But usually, I try to use glass syringes. So it's
really?
Nice. Instead of using the plastic microplastics in there. The hot oil, you know what I mean? So
absolutely. That's specifically why I had that question. Yeah, the microplastics and things like that. I've recently made the switch to Pyrex and glass containers for all of my butters and things like that because of even just the room temperature changes. You know what I'm saying? Reading all of Dr. Michael Pollan's books and just like you said, we've had this conversation about microplastics pretty much in everything. It's one of the biggest terrible things going on our planet right now. It's in everything. But
that's
another episode, and that's a whole nother blunt rolled on a whole nother channel and a whole nother bat frequency. Once again, thanks again, Paco, for doing this with me and just having a quick conversation. I've been dying to just pick your brain, and those were just some questions that I had right now since we've been chilling. It's always been a pleasure. I had a pleasure hanging out with you and Dollery and everyone. You've always showed love to a lot of us. It's just, I'm all the way up north and you're all the way over there.
It's all right, though. I'm going to start coming up your way now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Problem with me, man, is with my diagnosis and my spine and whatnot, with the cold, it's kind of hard to get around.
Yeah, absolutely. The warmer weather will be much better for us.
Warmer weather is way easier for me, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Especially when it rains. When it rains, it's even worse because of all that pressure change.
Yes.
The humidity and whatnot. Oh, my
absolutely.
God. So it's like, with the pressure change and the rain and then the cold, it makes it hard for me to get around on top of it. So now that it's spring and summertime, we're definitely going to be linking a lot more. And definitely be going out and doing what we got to do.
We got to do what we got to do, man.
I haven't seen you in a minute. Literally, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, we got to get our activism on. You know what I'm saying?
Let's go, bro. I'm always
absolutely.
I'm always down to go and support the cause. You know what I mean?
Me too.
Don't get me wrong. I'm just a medical patient, just trying to get advocate for other medical patients like myself, who are just,
correct.
Forgotten and
yes,
left
absolutely
by this these
industry. That's why I do this podcast.
Yeah, industry. It's like this industry isn't just for recreational. People.
It's
the
not.
Industry itself. It's just we were legalized off of recreation, medical patients' backs, literally.
Yeah, for real.
Like we're sitting here and getting left behind, and we're still paying over $400 an ounce.
Like, and look at both of us. Both of us moved from similar West Coast states where we weren't getting anywhere, and now we're in New Jersey doing the activism route, trying to get people the best kind of medicine for what their needs are. And again, yeah, like if you want to be on the rec side and you like to party and you just need to chill out, but there's both sides. There's both conversations, and there's many conversations, which is why we have this podcast. We love having a mix of everyone, so we don't come from that corporate AAA standpoint of dispensaries just putting out bud tender information because of the business. What's your favorite bud today? Oh, I'm smoking on this, and it's like, I mean, come on, seriously. Like you work at a dispensary, but you smoking on cookies every day. Come on, like seriously.
It's the wildest part to me. You're not gonna sit here and try to push me the most expensive.
Exactly,
I'm not gonna pay $65 for the 8 out the door.
Because Instagram told me to.
Yeah, and that's the craziest part. It's like most of these people are just like super infatuated with most of these Mylar companies. I'm like, I get it, you know what I mean? But most of my experience personally in smoking most of these Mylar branded companies is nothing to boast about.
It's like Walmart. Patient, Walmart weed.
That's what I'm saying. All the money went into preparing the Mylar, the artwork, and where did the money go into the actual cannabis?
Yeah, the marketing.
As a medical patient, I need something that works for me and my necessities for medicating.
Yeah,
it's like if my medical necessities are not met by smoking and or ingesting said cannabis, what's the point of spending my money? You understand?
And the money that it took to get there.
Common sense. I mean,
because a lot of
dumb and spend your money on cookies packaging just because it's cookies. It all tastes the same. It all smokes the same. The high isn't even any much better just because it's in that Mylar. I mean, a few brands are out there that some of them do rock, but not every single one in a Mylar is going to be the bougiest, baddest, best cannabis on the planet. That's what people have with this misconstrued concept of flower. If it's in an expensive Mylar, it's going to be good. I've smoked cannabis that was grown outdoor, literally outdoor boogie, and it smoked better than most Mylars that I've smoked. I'm sorry, how is that perceived? You know what I mean? It's all depends on how it's grown, realistically, at the end of the day.
Correct.
And that's the problem with Jersey. It's most of the cannabis I've smoked in Jersey, from most recreational standpoints, lack thereof the medical properties that I need, for my issue.
Who's spraying their bags? New York, New Jersey, or everyone?
Country. Everybody
The whole
in the country
country,
with these spray terps. Like,
spraying
you're
it.
not gonna sit here and tell me that cannabis is supposed to smell like candy. You know what I mean? Like,
Correct. I know.
And tell me it smells like a Jolly Rancher. Like you just opened a bag of M&Ms. Like, it's not supposed to smell like a cheesecake, or it's not supposed to smell like a fucking. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. You know, cannabis is named after certain fruits and whatnot because it has certain different type of terpene profiles that smell a little fruitier. But you're not gonna sit here and tell me that something smells like you just opened up a bag of candy. Like, that's just a big red flag for me. I like my weed to smell like weed, personally.
Correct. A little pepper, a little piney, a little cat pissy, a little gasoline,
all the diesel gas smoke,
kerosene. You know, those are the ones that I personally like, because I since we moved back and stuff like that, there's always this one terpene that it just kind of reminds me of jackfruit, and it really turns me off of a weed immediately. So that's what I love about your shit and about real shit. Like, you'll see the terpenes on the labels. You'll get the terpenes from the source. Do you taste that? Oh, that's limonene. That's why. Oh, I thought it was because it was some funky fruit or something, and it's not. It's just a different receptor in your body that smells fucking jackfruit for some reason. And for me, jackfruit does not smell appealing when I'm opening a bag. So,
that's the thing, though, because like a lot of these people are doing that. Like, they're spraying these, this cannabis that just doesn't smell the best, unfortunately. Or,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and they have these, big, expensive laboratory grade machines. But
I seen them. Yeah. You posted them.
I wouldn't smoke that. You know what I mean? Like, that's just something that's like, I'd rather trust a grower and smoke something that's actually good. You know what I mean? But that's what's the sad part about New Jersey, is that there's not that much good weed on the actual recreational market that actually works well and smokes well.
And is it coming out every 90 days, or is it coming out every 6 months? Is the tsunami dream from June of last year going to be the tsunami dream of April this year? Is the consistency there? And unfortunately, it's not. And we've still got some work to do. We've still got some politicians that need their asses kicked in a political sense, not a physical sense whatsoever, because here on VansPotCast, we're all about the activism, we're all about the truth-telling, we're all about the homegrown experience. VansPotCast was sponsored in part by my guest, Paco Vargas. Has all of the best Shaman deals that you can possibly imagine. If you want to tap in, feel free. His link will be available at the bottom of the podcast, as well as the episode count right after the April 1st joke. I'd like to thank my guest, Paco Vargas, once again for joining us for a special intimate conversation about RSO, about legality, as well as our current position in New Jersey with New Jersey legal cannabis, as well as all the alternative and holistic healthcare that you're looking for. VansPotCast was filmed in Bayonne, New Jersey. I am Van. I am your host. I'd like to thank my guest once again, Paco, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you for having me on here today, man. It was great touching on all these topics.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll do another roundtable soon.
Homegrow in New Jersey, if everybody can go out there, njhomegrow.com. We're trying to get this situated for people and trying to get patient rights to be able to grow at home. So please.
Absolutely. That's what we're striving for. It just doesn't make any sense to be locked up over a seed, to be locked up over a plant, as opposed to being covered in shackles by the pharmacological prison complex of pills. This is VansPotCast. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Thanks for listening, and thanks for the feedback on Spotify. We'll catch you guys in a couple of weeks, as well as on the road in Vegas later on this month. Thanks again for tuning in to VansPotCast, episode 6.